welcome in to Fantasy Baseball today on Monday, August 19th. I am Frank Stampfl, joined by Scott White and Chris Towers. Today on the show, we have waiver wire ads and drops from the weekend, lots of injury updates, start or sit decisions, and much more. But let's jump in.
I don't believe what I just saw!
All right, players of the weekend. Looks like I'm the only positive one on the podcast because these two have some pitchers that are going through it right now. Scott, we will start with you.
All right, let's go with Nick Lodolo. Nick Lodolo got crushed on Saturday against the Royals. 8 runs in 2 1/3 innings. It was really bad. Here's the thing. Been bad for a long time.
For a long time.
I
feel like maybe longer than we've acknowledged.
I mean, we've been talking about it, but the way we cover things on, sort of a start-by-start basis, you could lose track of just how bad it's been.
Mm-hmm.
This is how bad it's been for Nick Lodolo. His last 9 starts, he has a 7.15 ERA.
Scott, I'm sorry, you're not going far enough back.
Oh, okay.
He has a 5.30 ERA since May 1st.
Yeah.
He has a 4.30 FIP since May 1st. So, like, a little bit of bad luck there, but not much. And if you go by month, his strikeout rate is 33%. That's awesome. 22.4, 20.8, 22.7, 20.9. League average is right around 22%.
So I feel like where this really started was, remember in mid-May, Nick Lodolo spent some time on the IL with a strained groin. It was a short IL stint, and it was a groin injury, so you wouldn't think it would be that impactful to his pitching. But it has been, because since returning from that, the curveball, which is his best pitch by a long shot, one of the best curveballs in the sport when it's right, the movement hasn't been right on it. Basically, the movement profile's been different. I believe, I'm trying to remember vertical, horizontal, which is down more, but one of them's down a full inch, one's down like 3 inches, and it's been pretty consistent since he came back from that groin injury. So something changed for him then, and he hasn't been able to get it right. And since I think that's mainly the source of Nick Lodolo's problems, I do think it's possible it just snaps back into place at some point. You figure out whatever's wrong, the curveball starts dominating again. I think that's a plausible scenario for Nick Lodolo, but it's been a long time, like we said. And you can't use him, obviously. As bad as he's been, I don't think he's beyond dropping. It's pretty surprising to me Nick Lodolo's still 90% rostered in CBS Sports Leagues. I think after this total debacle, you can go ahead and move on. And if he does have that start where he snaps back into place, I don't think there's going to be a ton of competition if you pick him back up again. I say that acknowledging he's still 90% rostered, but I don't know. It's just not adding up to me.
Yeah, Nick Lodolo is part of a drop-o-meter segment later on, 1 to 10. Scott, does that just mean he's a 10 on the drop-o-meter or close to it?
Close to it.
Yeah.
What about you, Chris?
I'd say like an 8 or a 9, yeah.
Okay.
Right. I could, there's got to be something worth picking up, obviously. But if there is something worth picking up, I'm not going to stop myself from picking him up because, I can't lose Nick Lodolo.
Mm-hmm. All right, we'll get to some of those waiver wire pitchers in just a bit. I'll have one of them as my player of the weekend. But first, Chris, over to you.
Zac Gallen, who has 10 starts since his return from the IL. He has 4 or fewer strikeouts in 7 of those 10 starts, including 3 straight starts with 4 or fewer strikeouts. It's weird because, remember early when he came back from that, it was a hamstring injury. He came back and his velocity was up, which was weird. And then it's settled in right around where it normally is. And everything physically seems okay, but his fastball especially has just been bad since his return from the IL. His whiff rate has been below 12% with his four-seamer. Last season was at 19.2%, which is not elite by any measure, but given how Zac Gallen kind of straddles the line of being a strikeout pitcher and not, and doesn't really get a ton of whiffs, it doesn't seem like something he can really afford to lose. And I'm not ready to just say Zac Gallen needs to be benched in all formats. I'm not certainly saying you should drop him. If we were putting him on the drop meter, he'd be a much lower number than Nick Lodolo. But if I had a 2-start Tyler Anderson this week or a 2-start Yusei Kikuchi, I'm probably sitting Zac Gallen. And I would even consider it for like Kyle Harrison or Martin Perez or even DJ Hurst. In a points league, just because Gallen just is not giving us the strikeouts that we need from a must-start pitcher lately.
And again, his downfall has coincided. It coincided with an IL stint. His was a hamstring strain, which again you wouldn't think would have that big of an impact on his pitching. But he's really been searching for it since then. The velocity spikes, the sometimes weird pitch selection. I noticed after this latest start, Gallen said, "I don't know if I had a great feel for anything, to be honest with you." And I feel like you could change the verb tense to "I don't feel like I've had a great feel for anything, to be honest with you," because that's what I think is happening here. And it'd be one thing if he just had a high ERA during that time. Like, okay, a few bad outings inflated it, but the walks are way up.
Yeah,
strikeouts are way down.
Everything mediocre, yeah.
Right. And I'm to the point where I think in most formats I would be sitting him. I don't think you could drop him because the chances of that backfiring when somebody else picks him up are too high. A guy with his track record. But I would be looking not to start him if I could figure out a way to do that.
Yeah. Again, this is Zac Gallen we're talking about. And to put some numbers on it, his last 9 starts, a 5.24 ERA, a 1.66 whip, 6.8 K per 9, 4.1 walks per 9. So just below league average strikeout rate, higher than league average walk rate during this time. And he's at Boston this week. So they are second in WOBA against right-handed pitching. His home road splits, he's much worse on the road this season, a 4.69 ERA. Yeah, complete agreement that if you could find a way to get away from Zac Gallen this week, I would do that. I don't know if it's related to the innings from last season. I think we were all collectively at least somewhat worried about Zac Gallen coming into the season because between the regular and postseason last year, he threw 243 and 2/3 innings. So that kind of workload coming off that and entering this season, it raised some alarms and some red flags there. And perhaps that's part of the issue with Zac Gallen this season. Let's go to my player of the weekend and a potential waiver wire option in Bowden Francis, who had himself quite the week. He was up against the Cubs this weekend. He threw 7 shutout innings with 7 strikeouts. He had 14 whiffs on 95 pitches. Did a great job limiting hard contact. He changed up the pitch mix in the start as well. He more than doubled his splitter and his slider usage, and both of them were pretty good pitches. The splitter has been a good pitch for him overall this season. The slider is Bowden Francis's best whiff pitch. Notice his velocity was also down in this one, so I'm not sure if that was on purpose, but it was down quite a bit. The bigger point, Bowden Francis, 2 starts this week. He was great in both. He went 7 innings in each, 14 total innings, 1 run, 15 strikeouts. He put up 64.5 fantasy points on CBS, and I was facing him in the Scott White Dynasty. So that's the only reason why I know that. But he absolutely dominated me. Scott, I know you've kind of been like, there might be a pitcher here with Bowden Francis, and after this week, feel a little bit better about that.
Yeah, I would think he's one of the pitchers who's going to be added in a number of leagues after these 2 starts. And I've cited before how part of the reason, really the only reason I was interested in Bowden Francis on any level is because he was so dominant last year. And I actually have the numbers here between the majors and the minors. And a lot of this came in relief, it's worth pointing out. But still, if a reliever had these numbers and then was moved to the starting rotation, we'd have interest in that. So between the majors and the minors last year, between starting and relieving, Bowden Francis had a 2.04 ERA, a 0.98 whip, and 10.9 K per 9. So the guy can pitch probably. How good is he? Is he going to be somebody who we care about in fantasy long term? I think there's still reason to doubt that, but he throws a lot of strikes. He's a fly ball pitcher, and that can lead to a lot of outs if it's not leading to home runs. And it looks like he might have a little bit of bat missing ability too, even though maybe the pitch characteristics on their own don't blow you away. I'm fairly interested in Bowden Francis. Is he somebody I'd drop Nick Lodolo for? If I needed to use a pitcher right now, I'd rather use Francis.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think there are 2 start pitchers I'd add ahead of him, but if we're talking longer term, or in a roto league where 2 start pitchers have a little more boom bust potential, I think I'd be open to that. The one thing I would add that Frank, you alluded to, is the set splitter, which is a new pitch for him. He didn't throw it last season, and when you look at Bowden Francis throughout his minor league career, and especially in the high minors, what you see is a lot of strikeouts, 286 strikeouts and 256 in the third innings. Decent control, not great. 3.4 walks per 9. That's fine. 1.7 home runs per 9. That's how you get to a 4.60 ERA at AAA. And when you look at
that was this year at AAA?
That's his overall AAA
career.
Okay. And that's not, I mean, the International League is a tough tough league for pitchers, but it's not the PCL. But that splitter has a -8 degree average launch angle and a 235 expected WOBA. That is the best pitch he has in terms of contact suppression. And that could go a long way to helping cover up for what has been Bowden Francis's biggest problem. And so, I think he's a pretty interesting talent and someone who I think I'd be open to dropping Nick Lodolo for.
He gets the Angels next week, does Bowden Francis. So that's a pretty good matchup.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're kind of middle of the pack against right-handed pitching, but overall not a lineup that we're scared of. And Bowden Francis, widely available, 27% rostered on CBS. So if you are looking for a pitcher right now, waiver wire pitcher, I think he's in the mix. And if Nick Lodolo is your worst pitcher on your team, I think that's totally a fine move to make there with Bowden Francis. Want to give a shout out to Richard Lovelady. You were right all along, Chris. He picked up a 4-out save on Saturday, and it looks like Pete Fairbanks is going on the IL. So maybe Lovelady can get even more looks for saves moving forward, but we'll talk about that in just a little bit.
I mean, it was a 5-run lead. I think he came in with the tying run on deck.
Don't rain on this parade.
Come
all
on,
right.
Scott.
I'm just saying there are a few relievers from the Rays bullpen I would pick to replace Fairbanks over Lovelady. Okay, I don't want to mislead anybody who's going to tune out for the rest of the show.
Why would they tune out? Stick around.
People they got a lot of podcasts to listen to.
Yeah, that's true. And speaking of which, we'd like to welcome a new podcast to the CBS Sports family, a new NFL podcast, by the way, Pushing the Pile with Mike Renner and 3-time Pro Bowler Kyle Long. You can watch along on YouTube at youtube.com/@NFL on CBS or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube right now, you can scan that QR code and that will take you right to the YouTube channel. Let's take our first break, and when we return, news and notes, lots of injuries from the weekend. We'll talk about that right after this.
We need your sports news anywhere.
We've got breaking news to bring you.
Then get your sports anytime you want them. Big trade news overnight to discuss.
Because we know you need sports all the time.
A lot of movement in the rankings this week.
A legend adds to their legacy.
We're bringing you that breaking news right here on HQ.
CBS Sports HQ, anywhere, anytime, all the time.
Welcome back in. News and notes, and the biggest news of the weekend came from the Dodgers. We have 2 big injuries. Freddie Freeman exited Saturday's game due to a jammed finger, and x-rays came back negative, but he was out of the lineup on Sunday and is slated to undergo a CT scan on Monday. Also expected to miss a couple more days at least. So the fact that he's going for another scan, and they've already said he's going to miss a couple more days, if you play in a shallower league, I think I would want to have a replacement ready for Freddie Freeman.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yep. Well, the other injury with the Dodgers was Tyler Glasnow, who was placed in the IL with right elbow tendonitis, and MRI revealed no structural damage. Apparently, Glasnow made his case to not go on the IL, but the Dodgers wanted to play it safe. And what I read is that they did want to rest him here a few weeks and then kind of unleash him down the stretch and heading into the playoffs, although the NL West is a legitimate race all of a sudden. So I don't know how much they can afford to just rest him and say, oh yeah, we're going to still win the division at this point. It's a big loss, Tyler Glasnow.
He has. Oh no, he actually hasn't. He's 4 1/3 innings away from his career high, which he set last year, and presumably the Dodgers are anticipating a lengthy playoff run. So I can understand them giving him a couple weeks off here.
Mm-hmm. Some good news for the Dodgers is that they are expecting Tommy Edman and Max Muncy back on Monday. Edman is 55% rostered. He has not played all season. I could see having interest in him, obviously just getting some kind of cheap exposure to this Dodgers lineup, but he hasn't played all season. I think it's going to take some time for him to shake some of that rust off. So I think you can add him and just kind of keep him on the bench for now. I don't know that Tommy Edman is someone you want to throw right into your lineups right away there. Some other pitcher injuries from the weekend. Hunter Green, this one out of nowhere, went on the IL due to right elbow soreness, and he is awaiting the results of an MRI. Comes at a terrible time. I believe all three of us pushed him inside of our top 20 starting pitchers, and Hunter Green's been great over the past 2 months or so, and this is another one where it's a pretty big loss.
Yeah, and the way they've talked about it was super sketchy. I don't know if you saw, but initially they were like, it's a total precaution. We're not worried at all. And also he's going to have an MRI and we don't know. Like, how can you say it's a precaution if he hasn't had an MRI on his sore elbow? Like those two things don't add up. That's not how that works.
I've noticed the word precaution or precautionary gets thrown around a little too much these days.
Yeah, that seems like damage control more than anything. So that was annoying. I'm very annoyed.
A couple other pitcher injuries. Jose Soriano went on the IL due to right arm fatigue, and Zach Littell with right shoulder fatigue. It kind of just feels like we're at this point in the season, entering late August, about to hit September, where innings are adding up, and I think we're starting to see that kind of take its toll on the Glasnows, Hunter Greens, and obviously other pitchers we've mentioned.
Well, last week I wrote about 16 pitchers who could be facing innings limit concerns, and 3 of these 4 pitchers were on that list: Tyler Glasnow, Hunter Green, and Jose Soriano. In fact, Jose Soriano is now 31 innings above his previous high, which was several years ago because he's spent the more recent years in relief. So the Angels might just want to shut him down for the year, frankly, because if he's healthy, I presume if he's healthy and they don't bring in a big name in the offseason, they're probably looking at Soriano being their opening day starter next year.
Yeah, and actually we got another report right after Sunday Night Baseball kind of in relation to this. Tarek Skubal will get extra rest in between starts for the final 6 weeks of the regular season. He's already
He was another one. He was another one of the 16.
He's already up to 155 and a third innings on the season. He threw just 95 total innings all of last year between the majors and the minors. So I highly doubt that we will get any two-start weeks from Tarek Skubal, rest of way. Fernando Tatis has been participating in some baseball activities, including long toss, as he continues to rehab that stress reaction in his right femur. Even with that, he remains without a definitive timeline to return. It's kind of been a mysterious injury. Tatis, Kyle Tucker, we're just not getting much information on these guys, at least in terms of a clear timeline for either one of those guys. Pete Fairbanks, which I mentioned earlier, is expected to land on the IL with a lat strain. And it feels like they'll play some matchups, tongue-in-cheek with Richard Lovelady. But some options here: Edwin Uceta, Manuel Rodriguez, and they've got 2 lefties, Garrett Clevenger and Colin Poche. Do you guys have a feel at all?
They could go with any of them, or they could go with a combination of them. Manuel Rodriguez has been their 8th inning guy since trading away Jason Adams. So if I'm going to speculate on anybody, I'd speculate on Manuel Rodriguez, but that's not with a ton of confidence.
Yeah, and I don't think it's entirely necessary just because there have been so many other saves options that have become available in recent weeks, and just ones that were more definitive, right? Where we know that they are the guy, or we feel pretty good that they are, the respective save source for their team. So
make sure Ryan Walker isn't available in your league.
Yeah, this is deep league stuff. 15-team Roto, AL only league, or the Rays bullpen there.
Or the biggest closer riser from the weekend, Michael Kopech.
Yes, normally we get to bullpens at the end, but I guess we could just mention it now. He picked up 2 saves over the weekend, and since joining the Dodgers, 8 games for Kopech, 8 and a third shutout innings, 1 hit, 1 walk, 10 strikeouts. Knowing Dave Roberts, I feel like this could still flip at any moment, but he's 34% rostered, and he might be the closer on one of the best teams in baseball.
I do just have a little a bugaboo about the way everybody's talking about Michael Kopech right now, because everybody's doing the like, Dodgers did it again. They worked their magic. And like, no, this guy was throwing 80% fastballs at 103 miles per hour long before he got to the Dodgers. None of that has changed. And he actually had his final 5 outings. He's actually gone, I think, 13 straight outings without allowing a run. He's allowed like 2 hits, 3 walks total in that stretch as well. So I just want to. Michael Kopech was very interesting before he got to the Dodgers.
You could do things to fix a pitcher other than change his pitch selection, though.
I just don't think they did. I think I could find 8 2/3 innings where he looked like this in Chicago too.
Yeah, but the timing is, they could have cleaned up his delivery so he's more consistent with it.
They might have.
And I don't know. I don't know how to look for that, but there are all kinds of things they could have done, and just the fact that they're with all their closer caliber relievers, the fact they've chosen him and in back-to-back appearances, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And meanwhile, Daniel Hudson's kind of been falling apart. So I don't know that. I know he's set up for Kopech in Sunday's game, right? But I think he's pretty much removed himself from the closer conversation. So I'd be dumping a lot of fab on Kopech personally.
Oh yeah, no, I'm not disagreeing with that. We do this like everybody like trips over themselves to be like, look how smart I am. I agree with the Dodgers and Rays. And it's like, they're not magic. Sometimes I don't know. It's my own thing. It's my own thing.
You're too online, Chris.
Maybe.
Let's continue on with the news. Ranger Suarez is likely to return next weekend to start against the Royals. Not completely finalized yet, but any way you start Suarez or wait for him to get one start under his belt?
Against the Royals, it depends. If it's a deep league, I'd probably start him. If it's a shallow league, I'd probably have somebody else I'd rather start.
Where's that one at?
That one is, I didn't write down where it was, but I think it's home.
Okay. More likely to start him in Philly than Kansas City at this point, actually.
Okay. Austin Riley left Sunday after getting hit by a pitch in his right hand. He's set to undergo further evaluation after initial x-rays and testing were inconclusive, which I'm not a doctor, but that does not sound very good for Austin Riley.
Yeah. Just got Michael Harris back, and now Austin Riley. Mm-hmm. And if it is a fracture, you're probably done with him in fantasy. I would imagine he'd make it back for the playoffs if you care about that sort of thing. But for fantasy purposes, I think that would effectively end his season. But we'll see. Let's wait until the tests come in. People try and drop somebody as early as they possibly can. There's no reason for that. Let's see what actually comes back. But I agree, it doesn't sound good.
That Ranger Suarez start, by the way, is in Kansas City next weekend. Ketel Marte returned to the lineup Saturday after missing 3 games with a low-grade ankle sprain. He was then out of the lineup on Sunday, but appeared as a pinch hitter. And it turns out that was a bad idea because he aggravated the ankle injury. And this is another one that's kind of up in the air right now, but I would expect him to miss at least a couple of games. So,
yeah, I mean, I don't know if you guys saw it, but I think he injured it just on a swing. It wasn't like running the bases or anything.
I think it was a check swing.
Yeah, he just stepped and kind of went down. So that was concerning, certainly.
Yeah, I think I would look for a replacement for Ketel Marte if you can do that. Jazz Chisholm will rest and rehab his left UCL injury following consultations with multiple doctors. He was spotted taking grounders at third base prior to Sunday's game and is expected to resume swinging a bat soon. Alex Bregman missed all 3 games this weekend due to right elbow inflammation. He said that he slept on it wrong and hopes to miss only a few days. What are you guys doing with Alex Bregman this week?
He's been so hot. I'd probably start him. The few days have passed already. And I think they did an MRI and ruled out anything structural, even though it was just a slept on it wrong situation. Yeah, I'd lean towards starting Bregman.
Mm-hmm. As a result, the Astros promoted one of their top prospects, Shea Whitcomb, who we actually spoke about on our 5-minute podcast, FBT and 5 this weekend. He's a little bit older at 25 years old. He was having a huge season in the minors, 25 homers, 26 steals. He's only 12% rostered. He started Saturday and Sunday. Scott, the only thing here with Whitcomb is if Bregman's back in the lineup, is there a spot for him to play every day? Do you have any interest in fantasy?
He can play everywhere. He can play outfield where they have needs. So it's possible. I'm not saying they will play him there, but I could see playing time being available for Whitcomb if the Astros are motivated to give it to him. And yeah, huge power speed numbers each of the last 2 years. 2 years ago, it was with like a 30% strikeout rate, and this year it was with like a 19% strikeout rate. So major improvement. And he doesn't show up on any prospect list, really, does Shea Whitcomb? But I think he deserves your attention, even if it's not time to pick him up yet.
Ha-Sung Kim exited Sunday with a jammed right shoulder. Bo Bichette has resumed baseball activities. He'll ramp up at the Blue Jays spring training complex before he starts a rehab assignment. Yandy Diaz left Sunday after getting hit by a pitch on his left forearm. X-rays and an MRI both came back clean. Jason Dominguez was added to the Yankees roster as the 27th player for their game in Williamsport, where the Little League World Series is going on. Each team gets an additional player for this game. And then he was returned to AAA after the game, and Aaron Boone was interviewed during this one and said they wanted to get another right-handed bat in the lineup against Tarek Skubal. I think it's a little bit telling that, he was the name that was called up. I think if there's an injury or if they just have enough of Verdugo, they can call Dominguez up, but
I think they will have had enough of Alex Verdugo in about 14 days. I think if he plays every day and gets about 3.5 at bats per game, I think he can retain rookie eligibility after September 3rd, I think is the date. So, because that's the service time doesn't matter here. They've got the extra year of club control no matter when they call him up. So now I think he needs 99 at bats to lose rookie eligibility for next season, and they wouldn't be able to be eligible for draft pick compensation if he wins rookie of the year or finishes top 3 in MVP voting next season, which that's all kind of pretty unlikely. And so I think
I actually looked this up. It's not if he wins rookie of the year, yes, or if he finishes top 3 in MVP voting.
Either of the next 3 years.
Any of the pre-arbitration years. Yeah, so you get several shots at getting
those
an
are all
draft
extremely
pick.
Unlikely. So I think it's kind of silly, but I understand. That's the motivation. He'll be up. I would guess whenever the AAA season ends. I think it's end of August. Maybe they make the playoffs. I don't know where the Scranton Wilkes-Barre Rail Riders are in the standings, but I think he's a couple of weeks away, unfortunately.
A second opinion on Joe Ryan's shoulder showed a grade 2 teres major strain, which confirmed the original diagnosis. It seems unlikely that Ryan will pitch again in the regular season, but you never know. Welcome back to Tristan Casas, who returned on Friday and started all 3 games, even Saturday against the lefty. He had back-to-back multi-hit games, 5 hits total in 3 games, only 37% started. I think it's totally fine to get Tristan Casas back in your lineups.
Let's make it 87% started at least.
Everybody made fun of him for doing dry swings with his mind, but it worked. He came back fully ready.
Ronel Blanco has been cleared to start Tuesday against the Red Sox. He reported finger soreness after his previous start. Ronaldo Lopez will return and start Tuesday against the Phillies. He's been out since July 28th with right forearm inflammation. He's only 18% started. Scott, does this make Ronaldo Lopez a 2-star pitcher, and would you use him this week?
I don't know if it makes him a 2-star pitcher because we don't know what happens to Grant Holmes at this point, who had a great start last time out and has generally looked good. They have to preserve Spencer Schwellenbach's innings at some point, but they've given no indication that they're removing him from the rotation yet. So I could see them just going 6-man for now, but since I don't know the answer to that, And since this first time back from the IL is against the Phillies, I would avoid starting Lopez.
Jacob deGrom threw another live batting practice Saturday and hopes to begin a rehab assignment later this week. He's 69% rostered. Justin Verlander is slated to return Wednesday against the Red Sox. He threw 57 pitches over 4 innings in his latest rehab start on Thursday. He's been out since June 9th due to a neck injury, and I do not think you should start Verlander. Probably throws somewhere in 60 to 70 pitches, and it's a really tough matchup against the Boston Red Sox. Max Scherzer threw another bullpen on Sunday and is scheduled to pitch again on Wednesday. Matt McClain has been cleared to resume baseball activities. His recovery from off-season surgery on his left shoulder was derailed in early August when he sustained a stress reaction in his rib cage. Jared Jones will make at least one more rehab start before returning from the IL. Jorge Soler has missed 3 straight with a mild left hamstring strain. Isaac Paredes was scratched Sunday due to right shoulder discomfort, so pay attention to that. You might need a first or third baseman in his place. The Tigers recalled Spencer Torkelson on Saturday. He was starting to pick things back up at AAA last 21 games in the minors. 256 batting average, 6 homers, 7 doubles, 21 RBI, a 934 OPS, 32% rostered. Chris, any interest in Spencer Torkelson?
Yeah, some interest. I'm not saying he's a must roster player, but remember, he had a really bad first half last season, got red hot down the stretch, and ended up hitting 19 homers after the All-Star break. So I think, look, you'd prefer it if he had been really good at AAA, and really outside of the past few weeks, he had been pretty bad. So maybe
Terrible
he was trying to figure
strikeout rate.
out. Maybe that's why they called him up when they did. I think 32% rostered is probably too low either way.
Nolan Jones was reinstated from the IL on Sunday. He's been out since before the All-Star break with a lower back strain. He's 55% rostered. The Rockies have all road games this week. I don't think you have to add Nolan Jones. Maybe if you have a spot on your bench, you can hold on to him. But
yeah, I mean, I'd probably add him if he's out there in a 5 outfielder league.
Mm-hmm.
He did have a really productive rehab stint, and like the slash line was ridiculous. I'm trying to look it up real quick, but I'm not sure I'm going to get there in time. Oh, 333, 455, 733 with 4 home runs in 13 games. So there's a chance he could be impactful down the stretch. He certainly was last September.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, again, that is Nolan Jones. And lastly, the Rockies released Elias Diaz on Friday. Jacob Stallings started 2 of 3 games this weekend and could be a streamer whenever the Rockies are at home. Let's take our final break, and when we return, we'll get into the waiver wire options right after this. Welcome back in. Let's take a look at waiver wire pitchers from the weekend and some names in shallower leagues. These are between 70 and 80% rostered on CBS. Luis Severino, a complete game shutout up against the Marlins. 4-hitter with 8 strikeouts. He had 16 whiffs on 113 pitches. Michael Wacha, great once again at the Reds. 6 shutout innings with 9 strikeouts. Ben Lively bounced back from 2 rough outings in a row. He was at the Brewers. 6 innings, 2 runs with 5 strikeouts. And on the other side of that game, Colin Ray also bounced back from a bad start. He had a great one up against the Guardians, 7 shutout innings with 5 strikeouts. I feel like Colin Ray and Ben Lively are the same exact person, and I don't really know what to do with them in fantasy. I guess you just stream them in the right matchup. But Chris, how would you rank these names? Colin Ray, it might be based on the matchup if you want to take a look at that. But Colin Ray, Ben Lively, Michael Wacha, and Luis Severino.
Colin Ray's next 2 starts are the Padres and Diamondbacks.
Don't love it.
Can't say I have a ton of interest in either of those. We were including Lively, Texas. That's not a terrible one. Michael Wacha gets the Phillies. They're cold right now, but have been very good overall. And Luis Severino, the Padres. I think I like Ben Lively the best out of those because he has the best matchup in his next game. And with all 4 of these pitchers, I think that's pretty much all I care about. Waka might be the exception. He
Yeah.
might be a little bit above the streaming tier, but not someone that I think is a must-start pitcher by any means.
I was going to say Waka's the exception. I think he should probably just be rostered at this point. He's been so reliable and has the track record to back it up. I understand the underlying numbers aren't that impressive, but this is the third straight year now where he's just been money in fantasy regardless of that.
Let's move on to. Oh, go ahead, Scott.
Well, I was going to comment on Luis Severino since it was an awesome start. I don't think there's anything
the Marlins
to get excited about. Yeah, I mean, 4 earned runs plus in his previous 3. He has been using his sinker a lot less recently. Remember, he kind of was reinventing himself as a ground ball pitcher early on, and he was actually having more success when he was doing that. But he seems to be phasing it out. And apart from this one start, it hasn't been to his benefit. So I think you can ignore Luis Severino.
The next group includes Jeffrey Springs, who has had 2 strong starts in a row. This one up against the D-backs, 5 innings, 1 run, 7 strikeouts, 11 whiffs on 76 pitches. Brian Bayo had a strong start at the Orioles, 6 innings, 1 run with 6 strikeouts, 15 whiffs on 97 pitches. 6 starts in the second half for Bayo. It's a 3.44 ERA and a 1.24 whip. JP Sears has been pitching well, this time up against the Giants, 7 2/3 innings, 1 run with 9 strikeouts, 18 whiffs on 105 pitches, 14 of those on his fastball. And he has turned in 4 straight quality starts, 7 innings in each for JP Sears. And we spoke about Bowden Francis earlier, who was part of this group. Scott, how would you rank Francis, JP Sears, Brian Bayo, and Jeffrey Springs?
Well, by and large, I'd say this group is more interesting than the last one.
Agreed.
Springs is obvious number 1. I would say he's must roster at this point. The velocity actually took a step back when he was already behind where he was when last healthy. But the changeup was awesome again, and that's his best pitch. And if it's piling up whiffs, maybe the velocity on the fastball doesn't matter that much. I have him as a sleeper pitcher this upcoming week. He gets Oakland, and I have a lot of confidence in Jeffrey Springs delivering good numbers for that one. So he's number 1. Number 2, I mean, we might just play the matchups game with these guys too, in which case I'm going to go with Francis against the Angels, then JP Sears, then Brian Bayo. I do want to point out with JP Sears that he's got kind of a Ryan Nelson thing going on where when he throws his fastball a lot, it goes well for him. So 3 of his last 4 starts, he's thrown his fastball close to 50% of the time. It was 48% in this latest 9 strikeout effort against the Giants. So I'm counting that as close to 50%. 3 out of 4, he's done that. All of them were 7-inning outings with great results.
He's had a whiff rate over 33% in 4 straight starts, I believe, which all of those starts have been at least 7 innings. It's weird because it's like a 90-mile-per-hour fastball, and it's not necessarily the kind of thing that it doesn't look like the kind of fastball that should be getting the results it does, but it's been super effective for him. He's the one out of these 4 that I'm fine with going with him when he's hot like this, but 2 things. 1, 2 of those 4 starts were against the Giants, and those were the 9 strikeout starts. He had 9 strikeouts combined in the other 2, so it might just be he has their number for whatever reason. And then I will just say, this is the one that feels like when it goes wrong, it's going to go really wrong, more so than the other ones in this group, I would say.
Again, that was JP Sears we were talking about. The next group includes Michael Lorenzen, who had a solid start at the Reds, 5 2/3 innings with 1 run, only 3 strikeouts. He gets the Angels this week, which is a good matchup. Ryan Nelson fired another strong start at Tampa Bay, 6 1/3 innings, 1 run, 6 strikeouts, and over his last 8 starts, a 2.73 ERA and a .95 whip. I think he's out of the rotation, though.
Yeah.
So I don't know where Ryan Nelson goes from here. Aaron Savali, back-to-back quality starts. This one up against the Guardians, 6 shutout innings with 4 strikeouts. And David Festa has quietly pitched well since being recalled by the Twins. He was at Texas this weekend, 5 innings, 2 runs, 6 strikeouts, had 15 whiffs on 81 pitches, 5 starts since being recalled. It's a 2.38 ERA and a 1.15 whip for David Festa. Chris, any interest in this group? Festa, Savali, Ryan Nelson, and Michael Lorenzen.
So I will say credit to the Royals for making significant changes to Michael Lorenzen's approach. He's gone much more curve and sweeper heavy, a lot fewer fastballs. That's a good idea given his approach, but I don't think he really matters very much. I think he's just a streamer. Nelson, Scott mentioned it earlier, but that fastball, he's been throwing that fastball up in the zone a lot more lately, and it's been a really effective pitch for him. It's just, it doesn't seem like he's got a spot in the rotation. And that may, I mean, look, these kind of things, when you're talking about pitchers, you only don't have a spot in the rotation for the next turn in the rotation, and then something can happen. And something often happens with pitchers, but I can't exactly justify making him a high priority waiver wire ad when he doesn't have a rotation spot. So I would say Fest is the most interesting of this group. I think he's probably the most talented of this group. The problem is the Twins have just been really, really hesitant to let their young pitchers pitch deep into games. It's been a lot of 5-inning starts for him, Simeon Woods Richardson, Louis Varland when he's been in the rotation. So it's just, there seems to be a ceiling on how valuable these young Twins pitchers can be. But I think Fest is the most interesting of this group. I think there's a lot to like about him. He gets huge extension. He like has some of the best extension in the game, which makes his stuff play up. I think there's a legitimate pitcher here in David Festa.
Some names in deeper leagues. Osvaldo Bido, who pitches for the Oakland A's, was up against the Giants. He threw 6 shutout innings with 6 strikeouts, and he has turned in 3 straight quality starts over that stretch, 18 innings, 2 runs, 17 strikeouts for Bido. Andre Palante had a strong start up against the Dodgers, 7 innings, 2 runs with 5 strikeouts. And Albert Suarez had a strong start up against the Red Sox, 6 shutout with 6 strikeouts. He had 16 whiffs on 99 pitches. And last 3 starts for Albert Suarez, 17 2/3 shutout innings with 17 strikeouts. Scott, any interest here in deeper formats? Suarez, Palante, and Osvaldo Bido.
Well, with Albert Suarez, I don't even know that it has to be that deep of a format, and I hate to be a yo-yo with him, but he's now been back in the Orioles rotation for 3 turns, has yet to allow a run, or at least an earned run. I think a run at all in those 3 appearances. 13 hits and 3 walks in 17 2/3 innings, so a whip below 1, if you want to do that math real quick, about a strikeout per inning. He got 11 whiffs on the fastball today, but it's not like any of his pitches is a standout on its own, and the walk rate's kind of high and the strikeout rate's kind of low. So I don't really understand why Suarez is having so much success, just like earlier this year when he was. But he's come back around and he has the Orioles backing him up. So I think he's of interest in fantasy again. And he's certainly more interesting than these other 2. Osvaldo Bido.
Yep.
He's been doing the Ryan Nelson, JP Sears thing of throwing his fastball a lot more, and that's why that coincides with his last 2 starts being amazing. But that's not enough of a trend for me to really buy into yet. Just something to note with him.
Yeah. If you are desperate in a deeper league, Bido gets the Rays this week. They're 27th in WOBA against right-handed pitching. So, if you're really desperate, I could see that working out well for him. And, of course, as soon as we buy in on Spencer Arrighetti, he has a clunker against the White Sox of all teams. 5 2/3 innings, 4 runs allowed, 2 homers allowed in this one. Interesting pitch mix usage. He threw more cutters in this start, which isn't a good idea. His 4-seam and his cutter, they get hit hard. His curve and his sweeper are his best pitches. So kind of just feels like he should use those secondaries a little bit more and fade the fastball and the cutter. But if you guys picked up Spencer Arrighetti recently, would you just hold on to him after this bad start, or you think he's a drop after this one?
I'd hold on to him.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you hate that this happened against the White Sox. And in retrospect, I should not have started him over Aaron Nola.
I thought about that when I was making the rundown today.
Not that Nola was amazing, but, It went against my better judgment, and that's why it's called better judgment.
By the way, did Luis Severino have a 3-pitch inning in that game? Did you guys see this?
I don't know.
I have no idea.
I think he had a 3-pitch inning that included a double play with a runner on second. I'm going to try to confirm that because that seems like one of the weirder innings of the season, if that's true.
Yeah. I've heard people try and make the argument that a 3-pitch inning is more impressive than an immaculate inning. That's probably not true, though.
I mean, I would guess it's rarer.
I think it is.
So, like, in that regard, maybe. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, Luis Severino had a 3-pitch inning that included a single to left field, a pickoff that was an error on the pitcher that moved Vidal Brujan to second, and then a double play on the third pitch. So technically, he threw it 4 times. Once over to first, but
I'm surprised a 3-pitch inning would be rarer than an immaculate inning.
You'd think if the first 2 are out, you take the first pitch no matter what, right?
Maybe. But for most of baseball history, strikeout rates weren't that high. So I don't know. That it seems like it wouldn't be that uncommon back in the day when pitchers were getting 5K per 9.
I don't have any data to support that, but I feel like I heard it on a broadcast somewhere one time. So I'm running with it. Let's fire up the drop-o-meter. Garrett Crochet had a dominant start, but again, it was only 4 innings. At the Astros, 4 innings, 4 hits, 1 run, 9 strikeouts, 17 whiffs on 55 pitches. I mean, this was incredible stuff. It's just, we're never going to get a win. We're never going to get a quality start from Garrett Crochet. He's 87% rostered. Where is he on the drop-o-meter?
I was trying to come up with a pun for with crochet, and I'm at the end of my rope. There's something there, like yarn. I'm trying to spin a yarn, something like that. Yeah, I think he's a 10 on the drop-o-meter. If he's going that well and he's that efficient and they're still going to pull him after 4 innings, he hasn't gone more than 4 innings since June. There's nothing here. They're not going to let him. I think it's a 10 on the drop-o-meter. It's unfortunate. I can't wait to see what he does next season.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you could say unraveled.
The other name here is Bobby Miller, who returned to the Dodgers, and he
10.
was not good.
10.
Yep, 10. Scott?
Who are we on?
Bobby Miller.
Yeah, that's a 10.
All right, let's talk some waiver wire hitters, and so far so good for Junior Caminero. Through 5 games, he has 6 hits, including 2 steals, which is 1 more than he had in 59 games in the minors this season. So thought that was interesting. Caminero, 75% rostered. He's got 7 road games this week, including 4 against A's pitching. If if Austin Riley has to miss any time in a shallower league, Caminero is available. I know Berger was out there, but now he's too rostered. So there are some third basemen available in shallower formats. Some outfielders, Josh.
I thought this was encouraging for Caminero. If you hadn't picked him up already, I think this is an excuse too.
Yeah, I am still in the belief of Berger over Caminero. I don't know if that has changed for either of you. I think you were both Caminero over Berger though, right?
I rank Caminero ahead of Berger rest of season because I do think Berger will cool off at some point. Is he more startable than Caminero right now? I think you could make that argument. Yeah. Caminero's matchups are better next week for what it's worth.
Mm-hmm. Nobody likes a cold Berger either. That's not good.
Yeah.
All right. Let's talk about some outfielders. Josh Lowe looks to be picking things up recently. He had a steal in 6 straight games entering Sunday, and over his last 16, he's batting .333 with 2 homers, 7 steals, and OPS over 1,000. Masataka Yoshida has been very solid for nearly 2 months now. This weekend, he had 6 hits, 1 homer, 4 RBI, and since June 30th, Yoshida is batting .323 with 6 homers, 30 RBI, and an OPS over 950. Chris, if you play in a shallower 3 outfield league, who would you rather add between Lowe and Yoshida?
Well, Lowe in categories, Yoshida in points. And most 3 outfielder leagues, I would guess, are points leagues, so probably Yoshida.
Yeah. All right. Scott, agree?
It might be Yoshida anyway. Well, I guess it is a lot of steals for Lowe. Yeah, I agree with Chris.
Okay. Some Ketel Marte replacements in shallower leagues. Brandon Lau, who we talk about quite a bit, he added 2 more homers this weekend. 56 games since the start of June, 278 batting average with 15 home runs and an OPS over 900. He's 75% rostered. How about if you play in a slightly deeper format, 12-team roto leagues or deeper? Gavin Lux continues to hit 2 for 4 with his 8th home run on Friday, and he's having a big second half. Jorge Polanco has hit well recently. He had a home run on Friday, and last 22 games, 272 with 7 home runs and an OPS over 900 for Polanco. Isaiah Kiner-Falefa has hit well since joining the Pirates, 281 with 1 homer, 3 steals, and a 773 OPS. And Whit Merrifield has been doing some things with the Braves, 1 for 4 with a sock and a shoe on Saturday. He added another steal on Sunday. Scott, 12-team roto leagues or deeper, how do you rank these Ketel Marte replacements? Gavin Lux, Polanco, IKF, and Whit Merrifield.
Low, Polanco, IKF, and Merrifield. Exactly how you listed them. I do want to stress again for Brandon Lau that he is my number 6 second baseman rest of season. He's been, last I looked, number 4 since June 1st in points leagues. And I imagine, if anything, it's gone up after his big weekend. I retweeted Foolish Baseball, that Twitter account.
Mm-hmm.
Highest career OPS plus by second baseman since integration.
That was wild.
Minimum 2,000 plate appearances. Highest career OPS plus for a second baseman. Joe Morgan is number 1. Jackie Robinson is number 2. Jose Altuve is number 3. Brandon Lau is number 4. You know, there have been injuries. There's been some sitting against left-handed pitchers, but the guy's stinking good. And he's been good for a while this year, and I'm surprised his roster rate is only 76%.
I think people have Brandon Lau fatigue just because he's been hurt so much over the past couple of years. But when he's on the field, he's still really good. It's not to the same extent, but it's kind of a Christian Yelich situation. When he plays, he's still really good. Again, that's Brandon Lau. If you need a catcher, a name we continue to talk about is Joey Bart, who went 2 for 4 on Saturday. He added another home run on Sunday, and he is one of Scott's sleeper hitters for this upcoming week. 2 names in deeper leagues. Dylan Carlson had a big game on Friday, 2 for 4 with a sock and a shoe, and then he added 2 more hits and another steal on Sunday. He has been performing since joining the Rays. And the other name is Dairon Blanco, who plays for Kansas City. Huge weekend. 3 for 5 with a double dong, 7 RBI on Saturday, and then a sock and a shoe on Sunday. I think he only plays against left-handed pitching, but Chris, anything here? Deep leagues, Dylan Carlson, Dairon Blanco.
So I did consider picking up Dairon Blanco in an AL only league because he does have 21 stolen bases. That is the only reason I would pick him up. He barely plays. He has 111 plate appearances on the season, 138 last year. One of the true outlier performances of the season.
Mm-hmm. He was swinging a yellow crayon bat. What was up with all the crayon
That was
bats?
The players' weekend.
Yeah.
So you got to use bats that looked like school supplies?
You got to use fun bats. That was and they had their numbers on the side of their hat. I think those were the 2 fun things.
I saw the Jackson Merrill's lightsaber bat. That was pretty cool.
I didn't see that one. I got to check that one out.
Check it out. It was pretty awesome. This is probably a terrible take, and people are going to get mad at me for saying this. I kind of liked the players.
I loved it.
The weekend,
I thought it was great.
The jerseys, when they would put their nicknames on the back.
The problem with the jerseys was they were all monochrome, and it looked terrible. That was a bad idea. They went with the Cardinals wore red uniforms with red logos and red, that looked bad. But the having nicknames on their shirts, that was fun. I liked that.
For just one weekend, it
was dumb, but it was fun.
Yeah. Shane Bieber's nickname on his back said "Not Justin."
Yeah.
That was awesome.
Loved it.
It's a lot of fun. Yeah.
Rich Hill, D Mountain. Phenomenal stuff.
Yes. He re-signed with the Red Sox, by the way.
Re-signed with the Red Sox for, I believe, the 9th time in his career.
Minor league deal. How about that? Starters sit these starting pitchers. Garrett Cole has looked a lot more like himself recently. He was at the Tigers. At the Tigers this weekend. 6 shutout innings with 8 strikeouts, 13 whiffs on 95 pitches, and he is home against the Guardians this week. What do we do with Garrett Cole?
So this is one where the The results 2 starts ago were really good, and the process looked like Garrett Cole. His slider was awesome. He got a bunch of whiffs on it. He threw it a bunch. This one, slider wasn't really the pitch. It was the four-seamer and the curveball were the primary ways he got whiffs in this one. And I want to check myself and make sure that I'm not doing the thing where I'm saying he doesn't look like Garrett Cole, and I hold that against him. And it's to say that, like, I don't think Garrett Cole is Garrett Cole yet. But he's still showing enough that I think he's pretty useful for fantasy. It's probably not someone that you expect every time out to go out and strike out 10 and give you 7 shutout innings like we might in the past, but he certainly looks like a starting caliber fantasy option moving forward.
And he
Against
could become
Cleveland,
he could become 10 strikeout guy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, look, the Guardians overall, they've been much better this year offensively than we anticipated, but they are 21st in WOBA against right-handed pitching, so I think it's totally fine to use Garrett Cole this week. A big bounce back for Christopher Sanchez, who threw his second complete game of the season. He was up against the Nationals, 2 hits, 1 run, 4 strikeouts, only had 9 whiffs on 99 pitches. I think it's even more impressive because it looks like his changeup was not great in this start, and he still threw a complete game on just 99 pitches. Scott, I know we've been trying to figure out, like, Christopher Sanchez, he goes on these runs where he looks really good, and then his previous run, he did not look great. What do you do this week? He's at the Royals.
I'm so tired of Christopher Sanchez because he just doesn't make any sense. So he had 4 strikeouts in this complete game effort. That is 5 of 6 with 4 strikeouts or fewer.
Yep.
And given that they weren't all great starts anyway, I'm shying away from Christopher Sanchez still. I'm not saying he's unstartable, but in most leagues, I think I could do better.
What was interesting, his previous 7 starts before this, a 6.63 ERA and a 1.66 whip. The strikeout rate is abysmal during that time. It's still a 3.67 FIP and a 3.68 xFIP. So
the control's been great. The quality of contact suppression remains very, very good. I think I lean towards more starting him than sitting him on the whole, but at KC, I could see that going really poorly. So I'm fine sitting him.
He has bad home road splits, so he's 5.53 ERA on the road. Yeah, I don't think you have to start Christopher Sanchez, even though he's coming off a pretty awesome start.
By the way, I wanted to confirm one thing, which Cleveland's been bad since the All-Star break offensively. They have the 4th lowest OPS in baseball since the All-Star break, which I felt was true, but I wanted to make sure before I said it. So that's one thing with Garrett Cole, that matchup suddenly looks a lot better than it did early in the season.
Haven't they just kind of been bad overall since the All-Star break? I think the Twins are only 2 games out of the division. Royals are only 3.
Wow.
I mean, pretty much every division race is suddenly really close, right?
I think outside of the NL East and the NL Central.
NL East is 7 games. NL
maybe
Central
that'll
is
tighten
11.
up after this Tuesday through Thursday series. We'll see. Maybe we can get a little sweep going.
It is wild. Like, the Phillies have been like kind of stinky for like 3 weeks, and the Braves have gained like 1 game on them.
Let's talk about Clayton Kershaw, who turned in his first quality start of the season. He was at the Cardinals. He threw 6 shutout innings, only 2 strikeouts, only 4 whiffs on 70 pitches. But overall, he's been trending up. He's been better. He's 70% started and home against the Rays this week. What do you guys do with Kershaw?
So I said at the start of the week that this was going to be a make or break week for Kershaw because it would, if 2 starts, so you had to start him, but probably the last 2 start week. And so if he didn't show he could go 5-6 innings, then it's going to be hard to trust going forward. Well, he went 5 2/3 in the first one and then 6 in the second one. So you think, okay, coast is clear. But here's the thing. It was just 83 pitches in the 5 2/3 inning. And then in the 6th innings outing, it was just 70 pitches. You're not going to make it through 6 innings on 70 pitches very often. His season high remains only 83 pitches. He equaled it in that 5 2/3 inning, but we still haven't seen him exceed that. So I don't know. I don't know if if I don't think this week gave us any more clarity about if the Dodgers are willing to turn Clayton Kershaw loose just because the pitch counts happen to be so low.
I don't think they are.
You don't think they're going to turn him loose?
No, I think it's going to be max 85 pitches the rest of the way. I'd be surprised because it was pretty similar down the stretch last season as well. And
But
look, he can still be
through
useful.
a shoulder injury then,
Sure.
which is.
But I think this is a team like, yes, they're not running away with the division, but they're going to make the playoffs. And so everything remains October or bust here.
I mean, if they want to do well in the playoffs, I don't know that starting Clayton Kershaw is the way to go about that.
I don't think they're going to not start Clayton Kershaw, though.
Yeah.
And so they'd rather have him be at his healthiest at the end of the season than, yeah, I'd be surprised if we saw a 90 pitch start from Kershaw. Maybe if he's like really rolling in one and he gets to like 7 innings, maybe they do it. But yeah, I think he's a fringe starter.
Against the Cardinals, you could do it. It's not a must.
I think he's home against Tampa Bay this week.
Tampa Bay. Okay, well, that's even better.
Yeah.
You could do it, but it's not a must.
Ryan Pepio made his return from the IL, and he pitched well up against the D-backs. 5 1/3 innings, 2 unearned runs with 5 strikeouts. And he is at the Oakland A's this week. Only 28% started. What do you do with Ryan Pepio?
I'm pretty happy with the way this went. And he was pitching well before the injury at Oakland. Yeah, I could see doing that. I'd be more likely to start Pepio than Kershaw.
Agree.
Okay, let's get into some leftovers, and we'll try and breeze through these because we do have like lots of bullpen updates as well. But pitching leftovers part 1, I'm just going to read off the names: Chris Sale, Framber Valdez, Pablo Lopez, Blake Snell. They were all great again this weekend. Chris, anything to add on that group?
Yeah, I mean, the only question with Chris Sale after he showed that he's Chris Sale again was how is he going to hold up? And at this point, I don't have any questions. Framber Valdez, I think, is one of the most interesting pitchers in baseball for the stretch run because he has, let me get the numbers over the past
7 starts. That's about when he started throwing his curveball 40% of the time.
Yeah. On July 10th, he threw his curveball, then season high 38% of the time, hasn't been below 37% in any starts since then. He had maxed out at 32% prior to that start. So that's the cutoff. In that stretch, he had 10 strikeouts in that start. He's gone 5-0 with 50 strikeouts and 39 in the third innings with a 2.29 ERA in that span. We've always viewed him as like, he's a fine SP2 or 3. Suddenly, with this curveball first approach, he's looking like a lot more than that. He's looking like he's pitching like a top 12 pitcher right now, and it might just be a hot streak. But because it's tied to the curveball usage, if he keeps this up for the next 2 months, then we're going to have some really interesting conversations in the offseason about how high to rank Framber Valdez. And I think you could make a case for him as like a top 12 starting pitcher if he keeps this up. That's a fairly big if over the next 6 weeks, but it's something to watch for sure.
Yeah. I did want to mention with Blake Snell, by the way, 10 more strikeouts. He has double-digit strikeouts in 4 of his last 5 outings. And since returning from the IL on July 9th, 8 starts, a 1.03 ERA, a .69 whip, 70 strikeouts, over 52 1/3.
He's just going to win Cy Young again.
What's crazy is at this point in the season, his FIP and his xFIP are better than they were last year when he won the Cy Young. Which is pretty crazy. Pitching standouts part 2, Paul Skeens, Aaron Nola, Hunter Brown, George Kirby, and Brady Singer. 5 names there. Scott, anything you'd like to add on that group?
Well, it was a relief to see George Kirby get back on track. Not that I was particularly worried, but obviously that was pretty abysmal last time out. He looked like himself again, and hopefully he will moving forward. The main thing I want to point out with this group is Paul Skeens. Haven't had a chance to point this out his last few turns, but the trend continues. Not getting nearly as many whiffs as he was at the start. His first 8 starts, a 15% swinging strike rate. His last 8 starts, an 11% swinging strike rate. 15% is amazing. One of the best in baseball. 11%, a little above average maybe. Not particularly special. And given that he is a rookie, obviously, and has now exceeded his innings total from last year in college. It's a high innings total for a college pitcher, but he's exceeded it now. And the Pirates, I think, pretty soon are going to be playing for nothing. Paul Skeens was among those 16 pitchers with innings concerns, and it wouldn't surprise me if a shutdown came at some point.
So one thing I would point out in that regard is the whiff rate has held mostly steady. It was 33% in May. It's been around 25 to 26% in the other 3 months. The swing percentage has gone way down. And I think that's probably the biggest change is he wasn't generating, for the most part, a ton of swing whiffs per swing. He was just generating a lot of swings, and batters are being a little more patient against him. And I think that probably explains it. I'm not sure what that says about him moving forward. He's getting a lot of called strikes still. I think he's still an ace of aces, but yeah, I'm not sure. Like, we all moved him into our top 10 pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm.
I think rest of the way, he probably doesn't belong quite that high. Like, I'd rather have Blake Snell the rest of the way.
Yeah, I made the move Snell over Skeens, but I didn't move Skeens down.
Mm-hmm.
And part of it's just because there aren't that many pitchers I want in my top 10 right now. Mm-hmm. And we just lost another candidate potentially in Hunter Green. So it's I do think there's a good chance Skeens is shut down at some point, but until we see clearer indications of it, he's probably going to remain in my top 10 rest of season.
Yeah, I think the point you were making, Chris, about the lack of swings against Paul Skeens, you see that in the control as well. So I think opposing batters probably are just not chasing as much because he had 4 walks in his start this weekend, which was a season high, and he has 3+ walks in 3 of his last 4 outings. So that has also affected Paul Skeens' numbers recently. Did want to mention Corbin Burns, who got destroyed up against the Red Sox. 4 innings, 8 runs allowed, 2 homers in this one. He gave up lots of hard contact. I think it's one of those things where, like, okay, this happens to pitchers every now and then. I mean, his 3 starts in August overall have been pretty bad, but the numbers on the season are still very good. I don't know. Anything worrisome here with Corbin Burns?
His cutter is not that elite pitch anymore. His whiff rate in 2021 was 32%, and it's gone down steadily every year since. Last year it was around 22%, still pretty good for a cutter, down to 17.4% this season. I still rank Corbin Burns as one of the 5 best pitchers in fantasy, but that's more because his floor is so high and he pitches on such a good team, and then he's going to get so many wins and all that stuff, rather than where he used to be, which was one of the best pitchers in baseball and what I hoped he would bounce back to. Now, I think it's still, on the whole, a very good season for Corbin Burns, and you're happy if you drafted him. But it's going to be real interesting to see what his free agency looks like this offseason, because there are a ton of trends moving in the wrong direction that suggest that he might just be more of a good pitcher than a great pitcher. And he's going to be looking for like $200 million this offseason. I don't know if he's going to get it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely something to watch. And he's a Boris guy, right?
I don't know. I assume every big name free agent is a Boris guy, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe not anymore.
He is a Scott Boras agent.
Yeah. Very interested to see how Scott Boras performs this offseason. I mean, he does have Juan Soto, obviously. So, look, Soto's going to get his money.
I think he's going to get about $500 million worth of contracts no matter what.
Yeah, that sounds about right. But very, very weird offseason last year for Scott Boras agents. Hitters who have picked things up lately. I'm not going to read off all the numbers, but Cody Bellinger has hit well since coming back from the IL. Vinny Pasquantino having a big second half. All of a sudden, he has 92 RBI on the season, which is like awesome. Corbin Carroll has been very, very good since the start of July. James Wood, I saw a stat or a tweet somewhere that entering Sunday, he hadn't pulled a fly ball yet. And guess what? He pulled a fly ball and it went really, really far. 417 feet, 107.5 exit velocity. And Adolis Garcia is having himself a great August after just a miserable May through July. I don't really know how to explain it, but Scott, anything you'd like to add on Adolis Garcia, James Wood, Corbin Carroll, Vinny P, and Cody Bellinger?
Well, I mean, I guess other than pointing out how they've been performing lately, that's the main thing. I did happen to look this up ahead of the show, so I'll share it now. Corbin Carroll, I think last week I pointed out that since early June, he's been pretty solid, batting .248 during that stretch, which is underwhelming. But in terms of home runs and extra base hits in general, stolen bases, he's been productive. And I looked up just how productive. Since June 6th, which is going back, over 2 months, Corbin Carroll in head-to-head points leagues the 6th best outfielder with that .248 batting average, behind only Aaron Judge, Juan Soto, Jarren Duran, Anthony Santander, and Yordan Alvarez. Right next is Corbin Carroll. And it just,
Is this just Jose Ramirez again?
Every time, maybe that Jose Ramirez season.
Yeah, remember that one season where he just was horrible. Yeah.
Yeah. Every time we talked about, oh, Scott, are you moving Corbin Carroll down in your rankings? And I was just like, I don't think I really want to move him down. And I didn't have a great explanation for it, and that kind of bothered me. But since June 6th, the 6th best outfielder. So if anything, I had him too low. If we're talking rest of season rankings. So this is just sometimes intuition is all you really need. That's all I'm saying.
It just, there were people who were like, drop Corbin Carroll. Like I dropped Corbin, and I get it. You're frustrated, and I will just say, I would rather have, and I don't think I had Corbin Carroll on any of my teams this year, but I would rather have sat with Corbin Carroll on my team and taken the horrible stats he was giving us, even if it lasted all season. I would rather have had that than dropped him for whatever flavor of the month outfielder we were talking about back in June when people wanted to drop him. And because none of those guys that you were adding have this kind of upside. And I don't know if he's going to play his way back into the first round, but he might already be doing that.
I don't
Probably
think so.
not first, but
Someone asked me on Twitter. I said I think third or fourth round, but
that's kind of what I'm thinking. We'll
what if he does it for the next 6 weeks though?
Well, yeah, I mean, we'll see where the final numbers end up, but I imagine if the season ended today, Jarren Duran's getting drafted ahead of Corbin Carroll next year, right?
I think they might go.
I wouldn't do it.
I think they would go in a very similar spot, honestly.
Okay.
But I could be completely wrong about that forecasting this far out. The only thing I would add, Scott, the numbers you provided were in a points league, right? For Carroll?
Yeah.
I do wonder in a categories league, which typically we figure would be better for Corbin Carroll, but the shape of his production is not really how we expected it to come during this hot stretch. He's
still 6th.
He's really just sitting. Yeah. Okay.
Still 6th. Yeah. No, I get what you're saying because it's a lot of extra base hits that aren't rewarded anything in roto leagues and doubles and triples. I mean, and the batting average is low, which doesn't directly hurt somebody in points leagues, but would in roto. But yeah, it still comes out to 6th best outfielder since June 6th.
Yeah. And it's only 7 steals since the start of July, which is weird. He has 21 steals overall. He's certainly capable enough to run more. It's just he hasn't done it, which is interesting. Some other hitting leftovers from the weekend. Ian Happ continues to produce 2 for 4 with a sock into shoe on Friday. He added another home run on Saturday. The Jackson 3, they all hit triples on Friday, which was pretty awesome. That is Jackson Holiday, Jackson Trio, and Jackson Merrill.
That confirms that the Jackson 3 is the name when they all hit triples on the same day.
I think so. Luis Robert had a big game on Friday, 4 for 5 with a double dong, 4 RBI. So hopefully he can use that to build off down the stretch. Mookie Betts has looked completely fine since returning. 7 games, 357 with 2 home runs, 1 steal, a 986 OPS. Shohei Ohtani added 2 more homers and 2 steals this weekend, and he's up to 39 homers, 37 steals. He is on pace for 51 and 48, respectively, in those categories. Marcell Ozuna, another big weekend, 3 for 3 with his 36th home run on Saturday. Entering Sunday, he was the 8th overall player in Roto, 10th best hitter in head-to-head points. Gunnar Henderson's power is back. He has homered in 4 of his last 5 games. And Just wanted to mention Josh Young. What has he done since returning from that IL? Not great. 17 games, batting .239 with 2 home runs and a .604 OPS. Some bullpen updates for the Cubs on Friday. Hector Neris got the 9th inning with a 3-run lead. He gave up 3 runs on 4 hits. He took his 5th blown save. And then on Saturday, it was Jorge Lopez who got the 9th inning with a 2-run lead. He gave up a solo homer, but picked up his 3rd save. He has closing experience. Neris has not been good this season. It wouldn't surprise me if the Cubs go in a different direction.
Jorge Lopez hasn't been very good, though, has he?
No, he has not.
Yeah, he's several years removed from being a viable late inning option.
Well, 0.83 ERA with the Cubs, it looks like.
No, he's a 2.45. He's been much better than I thought.
How many appearances with them?
19?
Yeah, 3.75 FIP.
More than I
Still
thought.
feels pretty shaky, but yeah, he's been better than I thought. Yeah.
Okay, so that's just a situation to watch there with the Cubs. For the Pirates on Friday, we were wondering, all right, is David Bednar over? Are they going to go with Chapman? But Bednar got the 9th inning with a 3-run lead. He gave up a run on 2 hits, but picked up his 21st save. And then on Saturday, Bednar was perfect for his 22nd save. So still David Bednar for now. For the Phillies on Friday, Carlos Estevez got the 9th inning with a 2-run lead. He gave up 2 runs on 3 hits, took his 4th blown save, but the Phillies walked it off in the bottom of the 9th. For the D-backs on Friday, Ryan Thompson entered with 1 out in the 8th, a 1-run lead facing the top of the Rays lineup. He gave up 3 runs on 4 hits, took his 7th blown save. The Rays actually came back and they tied it. Justin Martinez then got the bottom of the 9th inning with the game tied. He gave up a run on a walk, a single, and error, took his 3rd loss. And then Martinez took another loss on Sunday in extra innings. Kind of feels like some stuff that's out of his control, but
yeah, it wasn't a great weekend.
Mm-hmm.
I agree it wasn't all his fault, but Paul Sewald's been pitching well, so I could see them going back to Sewald. I'm not saying it's time to drop Justin Martinez, but I don't feel nearly as confident in him as I did at this time a week ago.
For the Orioles on Friday, Craig Kimbrell got the 7th inning down 2 runs, and he gave up 3 runs on 2 homers. It is not happening right now for Craig Kimbrell. And then on Sunday, Sir Anthony Dominguez got the final 4 outs for his 4th save of the season. Kimbrell is still 82% rostered. How low does that number need to be?
I mean, lower, 30 percentage points lower. I don't think he needs to be dropped everywhere, but if he's just roto leagues, maybe roster him.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I don't think you need to have Kimbrell in any head-to-head points leagues, honestly. For the White Sox on Friday, Chad Kuhl got the 9th inning with a 2-run lead. He gave up a solo homer, but picked up his 1st save. That was the White Sox 1st save in the second half. I don't think
cool story, bro.
It doesn't really matter much. For the Dodgers, we spoke about Michael Kopech, who was only 34% rostered and picked up 2 saves this weekend. For the Angels on Friday, Ben Joyce recorded the final 5 outs for his 2nd save, and he is 37% rostered.
Are both of his saves 5-out saves?
Ben Joyce?
Yeah. Have they had to stretch him just to get him those 2 saves? My 4-out save was the previous one. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. For the Marlins on Sunday, Calvin Fauché got the 9th with a 1-run lead. He gave up 2 hits, but picked up his 3rd save. For the Royals on Sunday, Lucas Erceg entered with 1 out in the 7th inning, bases loaded, a 3-run lead. Facing 2, 3, and 4 in the Reds lineup. He struck out both Ellie De La Cruz and Spencer Steer. Erceg also pitched a clean 8th inning. The Royals would tack on some more runs. It was James MacArthur who pitched the bottom of the 9th inning with a 7-run lead. I bring all this up just to say, I think Erceg is probably just going to pitch in the highest leverage situations, and it might not always be the 9th inning.
But it'll usually be the 9th inning.
Yeah. We hope. But yeah, probably. For the Rockies on Sunday, Victor Vodnik bounced back with a clean 9th inning for his 9th save. For the Brewers, they had a save each day this weekend. But if you remember, Devin Williams pitched back-to-back days on both Wednesday and Thursday. So despite the Brewers playing well and winning games and getting saves, Devin Williams only had 1 of those 3 saves this weekend. Of all the names and bullpens we've mentioned recently, is Kopech now at the top of that list? Or would you still take someone like Ryan Walker over him?
I'd take Ryan Walker over him, but Kopech's probably second.
Yeah, so you'd take Kopech ahead of Urseg, Justin Martinez, Sir Anthony Dominguez.
I would, yeah.
I think I would have a really hard time picking between Martinez, Kopech, and Urseg. But yeah, I think he could be second for sure.
To stream or not to stream on Monday. And let's see here. We have Kyle Harrison up against the White Sox. Zebby Matthews is at the Padres.
Kyle Harrison against the White Sox is the one.
Yeah, that's by far the most interesting.
Yeah.
Jonathan Cannon at San Francisco might go okay if you want a second one, but I don't love it.
Yeah. Like Zebby Matthews, I'm excited to watch, but given how much he throws in the strike zone and how much contact the Padres make, I have a hard time seeing a lot of strikeouts in that one.
What about Tuesday? We have Eduardo Rodriguez at the Marlins. DJ Hers gets the Rockies in Washington. We have Cody Bradford gets the Pirates. Martin Perez gets the Twins.
Yeah.
I like Martin Perez probably most. I like DJ Hertz probably second. Eduardo Rodriguez versus Miami at Miami is fine. And Cody Bradford and Joey Estes versus Tampa Bay are also fine.
Bradford's pitching well.
Yep. I agree with all that.
Okay. We are going to wrap there for Scott and Chris. I am Frank. Thanks as always for tuning in to Fantasy Baseball today. Please make sure to follow and leave a 5-star rating on Apple or Spotify. And we will be back again tomorrow. Bye-bye.